Hi, and welcome to the National Entrepreneurs Association presents The Impact of COVID-19 on Entrepreneurs and How to Bounce Back. I'm your host, Dr. ZaLonya Allen, President of the National Entrepreneurs Association, where we support entrepreneurs through quality networking events and educational programs. Coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, has rapidly spread throughout our country and throughout the world, devastating communities, families, and businesses. Tonight, we're going to talk about solutions. We'll talk about specific strategies that entrepreneurs can use to bounce back better and stronger than before. We've assembled a distinguished panel of leadership consultants who will talk about ways that you can overcome. Our first guest is no stranger to leading people through crisis and change. She is Dr. Janice Cardwell, leadership strategist, coach, and former VP and campus director at University of Phoenix. Our next guest is Dr. Dawn Cohn, management consultant, executive coach, and NEA board member. Our final guest has had an award-winning career. She is Dr. Geneva Williams, leadership strategist, podcaster, and author. I'd like to welcome all of my guests and attendees and thank you for joining us. We're going to start today by having each panelist introduce themselves and tell us a little bit more about their professional background in entrepreneurship and leadership. Let's start with Dr. Janice Cardwell.
I was responsible for the students, the staff, the faculty, the alumni, academic standards, and community outreach. And with such diverse duties, there was always some type of crisis that needed critical thinking and communication skills. My entrepreneurial life started in 1984 when my partner and I launched The Conceivers as a custom clothing and promotions company. What I learned was work ethic. We worked 16 hours a day to pay the bills. And that's something that you need in a crisis. And working from home, which many of us are doing right now, does not mean you are not working. It means we are working more, not less. So to summarize, my reality is that my past and current leadership experiences help prepare me to deal with this COVID crisis, using critical thinking, systems thinking, and problem solving in spite or despite the circumstance. Thank you for allowing me to join you today.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Dr. Dawn Cohn.
Okay. All right. So it's good to be with you all. And first, we all hope that you all that are on the call are safe and healthy, and that you're doing as well as possible during this unexpected crisis. I look forward to discussion about strategies and tips. For me, and same, Dr. ZaLonya mentioned some of my background, and also our bios are available. So I guess to give you just some highlights, for the last 29 or so years, I've focused in my life and career on individual effectiveness, team effectiveness, and organizational effectiveness. So my role now is to help purpose-driven and mission-driven executives and leaders to be able to create exceptional performance at all levels. Okay, so I help them deliver on today's promises, tomorrow's goals, really trying to help them create high-performing teams, those sorts of things. So it's interesting being an entrepreneur and also helping business leaders. So there's sort of this dual track happening, right? So just a little bit about my background, and I'll share a little, just really briefly about my journey as an entrepreneur. I come in to help executives and leaders often when they are in trouble, when they are either losing revenue, losing customers, or something, some crisis has happened, something unexpected has happened, and they have to make tough decisions. They're trying to recalibrate. And I come in and I help them make tough decisions. I help them make sense of the chaos and really be able to thrive in that environment. Now, what's interesting is, in my previous life, I worked a number of years as a clinical psychologist, and I'm licensed as a clinical psychologist. So I bring that understanding of human behavior and change and resistance to change and how we react to crisis, all of that to a lot of my work. And it has, it's really informed how to help leaders be able to affect change, lasting, sustainable change. So after doing that in my previous life, I switched over a number of years ago to doing organizational consulting work, and I worked a number of years internally in a variety of settings, and doing my own work, project work on the side, freelance, through word of mouth. And then about 5 years ago, I decided it was time to have a little less talk and a little more action, because I had decided I wanted to start my own business. And so it was time to stop talking and get moving, right? And so going into it full time. So that's been my journey, growing my business and as an entrepreneur, while helping other business leaders and entrepreneurs do the same. So, you know, my entrepreneurial journey has been similar to what I do with leaders, helping them to navigate the unexpected, the uncertainty, knowing when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. The song is in my head, right? But you just have knowing when to make those decisions, right? Knowing when to pivot. The panelists, a couple of us were talking beforehand, and that's all in my notes, the idea of knowing when to pivot. It's the same journey that I've had to go through the ups and downs. The good thing is that as an entrepreneur, we're uniquely positioned, because part of our game plan is having to deal with uncertainty, things coming from left field. So that's been my journey, and I look forward to sharing with you some of my insights and my experiences with you all as well.
Okay, awesome. Let's bring in Dr. Geneva Williams. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Hi there. And ZaLonya, let me thank you and NEA for just an incredible panel. I'm so delighted to be with Jan and Dawn. It's really my honor, and just want to say hello to everyone. Hope everyone is staying safe. If any of you have been uncertain about your next steps, particularly when you reach a turning point like a change in career or retirement, or a milestone birthday like 50 or 60, you may be a little uncertain and perhaps a little fearful of what those next steps might be. Well, I'm passionate about helping women leaders and entrepreneurs figure out their next steps so that they can have a vibrant life full of purpose and power. And that's what I've been doing these past few years. But ZaLonya, before that, I think one of my really challenging times was when I decided, for some strange reason, to leave a successful career as a nonprofit executive, a 40-plus year career. And it was just phenomenal, and decided to become an entrepreneur. And when I did that, I was excited about doing it. 2 months after I made the decision, my husband was diagnosed with cancer. Shortly thereafter, my mom got sick. And then shortly thereafter, my dad got sick. And so within those first couple of years of me stepping into this new world, changing lanes to go from nonprofit to business, I lost all of them in a few years. And then I started my second company, and really had a lot to learn from that pivoting. And so here I am now. I'm a podcaster, an author, and award-winning businesswoman at 70, and am just enjoying life and doing all that I can do. And I'm delighted to be here to learn and to share what I've learned.
And excuse me, not to admit fabulous, fit, and fine. Just
Thank you.
get in there.
Well, you look great.
Thank you.
All right, wonderful. So now that everyone is a little bit familiar with your backgrounds and your area of expertise, first of all, I just want to say, fabulous panel. I admire all of you, and that's why I wanted to do this call with you, because I knew that you could provide some really great insight. So the first thing I want to talk about is the impact. Let me just bring up my slide here. I didn't get a chance to go through the agenda. First, we want to talk about the impact that the virus has had, and then we're going to talk about the bounce back and give some specific strategies that you can use, and then resources, and finally we'll conclude with the Q&A to give our attendees an opportunity to ask the panel some questions. So when we think about the impact, I think the impact has been, well, obviously it's been tremendous, and it's affected us in 3 ways. Number 1, our physical and mental health. Number 2, our economy. We had a strong economy, now we're in a recession. And then finally, number 3, it's changed the way we do business. People are scrambling now to figure out how to use all this technology to meet, network. We just saw that at the top of our call today. So ladies, talk about how this virus has impacted you as individual entrepreneurs and the impact that you've seen it had on the entrepreneurial community as a whole. And whoever would like to start, go ahead.
Well, I'll start. You know, certainly in working with the businesses, the CEOs, the executives that I work with, it has had, you know, as everybody knows, a huge impact in that it has forced us to have to do everything from work remotely to having to furlough people, to having, you know, to make some really tough decisions about who stays and who goes permanently. I mean, there's been all sorts of fallout from this. Not to mention when it was happening, just the pace at which organizations have had to keep up, and entrepreneurs have had to keep up with what's happening day by day and how it's impacting, and then feeling it and seeing it personally. For me as an entrepreneur, it certainly has had an impact as well. But a lot of my own work as a service-based business has been doing a lot of face-to-face, a lot of touch points, a lot of, and I am naturally a face-to-face person, right? I'm very familiar with using Zoom and have used it often for coaching clients across the country, but primarily my mode of connecting is face-to-face person. So whether it be workshops, webinars, in you know, on-site visits, those sorts of things, all of that got wiped out within the matter of a week. So it forced me to have to determine really quickly, okay, so now what? You know, am I going to sit and kind of twiddle my thumbs, or how are you going to navigate? So it definitely has taken out a huge component of my traditional business model, and forced me to have to relook at it. So I don't know how far you want me to go, but I'll certainly let the other panelists address that as well in terms of the impact.
So I'll jump in. You know, you asked us here because our business is leadership primarily. And in my opinion, when an entrepreneur hangs out a shingle or starts a business or says, I'm going to offer a product or a service, you're declaring yourself to be a leader. And I think one of the biggest impacts of this COVID-19 is that entrepreneurs and everyone really has been having to bring their leadership skills forward. Mm-hmm. As Dawn just mentioned, that pivot, and you mentioned it earlier, pivoting away from a face-to-face interaction with other people to do your business or offer your product or your service is the biggest impact. But it's also forced both entrepreneurs and individuals to look beyond their circumstances to find another way to either do business or to adjust or to survive. So I guess the biggest thing it's done, impact, is it's kicked in survival skills. And I'm hoping, at least from the people I'm talking to, it's kicked in survival skills that people really didn't realize that they possessed. But it's caused all of us to start thinking about life differently. First, how do we protect ourselves with health? And of course, we really hope that everyone is staying healthy, sheltered, whatever that means for you, wearing the protective equipment, doing what you need to do. Because if you get sick, that's the worst thing for an entrepreneur, particularly if it's your primary business. But you've got to be able to go forward, and you've got to be able to survive after this. And so that's why I talk about critical thinking and problem solve. Critical thinking to me is making some sense of what you're hearing and how you respond to it, and then fitting your life and your business into these adjustments that we all have to make. And those were, using video conferencing instead of having a face-to-face conference, or for client services, or shifting what you do. Instead of your clients coming to you, you may have to shift to a delivery service and do things, or a pickup service, but just doing things differently, I believe, is the biggest impact. And I don't think it's going to go away as quickly as we think it could.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yes, Dr. Geneva.
yeah, no, I think both Dawn and Jan have, just, hit on the impact that certainly has, affected me. My business is about networking and establishing relationships, and usually face to face. And so that has shifted and changed. When I talk to other entrepreneurs, similar, but depending on what their business is, most of the times I hear the impact is, a lot of financial. That, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay the mortgage? I'm missing my customers. How am I going to stay in business? Am I going to fold? So I think that financial impact is very, very heavy out there as well. And for me also, the impact has really helped me reaffirm that I am my brand, I am my business, so that means I have to take care of myself even more. And I think this whole thing that's happening to us, it really is affecting our health and well-being. And so it just brings it, that's probably been one of the biggest impacts for me, that this, in a minute, we can lose loved ones. We can,
Right.
Our things can change, and we have nothing to do about it. It's not in our control. And, came out of the blue. And while it is heavy and scary, it is temporary. And certain things will pass, at least staying home, but what's next? And so all of those things, all of those emotions, I think, are constantly swirling as we as entrepreneurs try to figure out what our next steps are.
Absolutely. So first, you mentioned the physical and the mental health part of this, and then the financial impact. First, I want to tackle physical and mental health, because without your health, you can't do anything. The rest doesn't matter. So let's talk for a moment about what entrepreneurs can do to take care of themselves so that they can lead the people in their organizations and they can continue to have a successful business. What have you guys been doing to deal with the stress and isolation from the stay-at-home orders that have just been extended another 2 weeks?
Right. Well, I know I'm in shelter with my grandchildren. Okay. So that keeps me, oh my gosh, that keeps me centered. It keeps me purposeful. It keeps me happy. And so I think to the extent that we as entrepreneurs recognize that we've got to connect and really connect even more. No matter what we have to do, we have to find ways to connect. So I know I'm doing that. I'm also, I'm really checking out my self-care toolbox. We all do self-care in different ways, and I'm kind of always checking it and making sure that I have, extra things in it that I'm dealing with. It's not about getting massage, which I can't do anyway now, but it really has to do with how my mind is, and the reading, and the, learning new things, and enjoying, going outside, and not dealing with that I'm isolated, that, this social distancing is really physical distancing. It doesn't mean that I have to be social or, isolated. But the other things, ZaLonya, I think as I'm thinking about my own health and welfare, I am thinking about employees and customers and their health and well-being. And I think we as entrepreneurs really need to have this public health and well-being framework and focus really in the center of what we do like never before.
Absolutely. Dawn, did you have something to add to that?
I was just going to say, I echo that absolutely, that self-care for an entrepreneur has to be at the forefront, because we are the brand. So if we go down, we risk everything going down, right? Depending on if you're a solopreneur, if you have a small team or whatever, and how much you've prepared for your absence for whatever reason, right? So it's of the utmost importance that you engage in self-care. Even if you're present physically, but you're not really there mentally, that you're still no good to anyone. So it's important. So I actually created, I don't know if you all can see, and I'm happy to share this if you want, but I actually have a worksheet that I created for myself to make sure that I kept myself on target. And I try to be pretty good about self-care as it is, but right now I need to be even more diligent about it, because I think the tendency is, with our schedules kind of being all over the place, nothing looks the same. So our tendency to be structured and schedule time and to make sure we're taking time to do those important things they tend to go out the window. And in general, the first thing to go for us as individuals is self-care. Okay. Yeah. So literally I have a thing where I have buckets: my physical self-care, my emotional self-care. And I borrowed this isn't mine at the top here, but I borrowed it. So physical self-care, emotional self-care, social, and spiritual. And I put down the bottom there the things that I need to do that I know work for me under each one of those buckets, to make sure that I am doing what I need to do to keep myself healthy. So, things for me like prayer and meditation, keeping a gratitude journal helps to keep my mind focused on what is working well. Okay, because we have plenty around us that's telling us what's not, and what the numbers are, and the factions fighting back and forth. There's plenty. So I need to make sure that I keep my mind in a good place. That also means with that is I have to limit my news time. And that means news from whatever channel, TV, social media, whatever. I do enough to make sure I know what's happening, but I know there's a time to turn it off where I'm starting to spiral, okay? Or I'm getting worked up with everybody else. So I have to limit that. And that's for my own sanity, right? And my own ability to be able to focus and do what I need to do so that I can be a contributor. I have a list of things that I typically do. So I'm happy to share that as well. But social interaction, there's all kinds of virtual ways you can do that. Playing games on Zoom. There's all kinds of ways that you can do it, to Dr. Geneva's point about not being distanced because you're physically distant. So we are in an age of technology where it has forced us to have to do way more than we typically have, but it also gives us the ability to connect in ways that help us during this time. So I find that being other focused helps.
Awesome, Dawn. And again, if anyone's interested in those tips or that list, you can reach out to Dawn. How can they get in touch with you?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And let me know that you were on the webinar. It's under Dawn Cohn, and I'll be happy to share it with you.
Okay, and Dr. Jan, let's get your advice.
So, and I'm glad you asked this question because there's really two parts of this question. One is stress and the other is isolation. The stress part is that part where we take care of ourselves physically. So what I've done personally is increased my exercise. And I looked around and I started, and particularly when they started saying who were the people that were most likely to either not survive or have to, illness. And I looked at myself in the mirror at 68 years old and said, okay, that's you. What are you going to do? So I get up every morning now, and the first thing I do is I do a weigh-in, and then I do a journal, and I write down what are my goals for the day. And those goals include very much similar to what Dawn is talking about. How much water are you going to drink? I'm got to get to 64 ounces of water. Here's my water jug. Right.
Yes.
Got to get that 64 ounces of water in. Got to get those 10,000 steps in. Wearing the tracker to make sure you do it. And really put some very, very strong structure into the self-care. That's the part about the stress relief, because we have to push that stress off. And now with the weather getting nicer, I just walked this morning. I just walked 3 miles this morning, walking for the fresh air with a mask. So when you run into people, you put your mask on. And I think most people are pretty much beginning to go outside now and feeling that comfort. I will be honest with you. I didn't leave my house for almost 4 weeks, not even to go to the store. My husband would do those things for us. We're empty nesters. We don't have anybody else. He would go out. I'll tell him how to protect himself and what to do when he came back into our home. But I'm going to talk about it now from the isolation point. And for me, that wasn't hard. I've been working for a national company for 20-something years. Not only were my coworkers and peers living across the United States, but even the clients that I began to have clients in different states and different geographies. So that part wasn't as difficult, but I did look at it from the perspective of it's not just me. And what I began to do is organize with my family we have a weekly scheduled video conference. We talk about what we're going to do to survive this thing. And I expanded that to my extended family, to my cousins, and every single person's appreciated. We've been having a Mother's Day virtual celebration on Sunday. The point that I'm making is that we have to get those two buckets, because the mental thing, and I hear a lot of people, my sisters are depressed. I hear a lot of people in a depression because of the isolation. And I truly would really suggest to everyone, you reach out to people that you know, if it's your clients or your family, and make sure there's a touch point. I've talked to people I haven't talked to in, one of my cousins was like 25 years. Unbelievable. So what I've also looked for with all of these experiences, as I'm journaling it, is the silver lining. And so I started developing the Conceiver Silver Lining Chronicles about this particular COVID experience. And in spite of the circumstance, what is something that is different, new, created because of this situation? And that's the message I try to push out to people. But there is a silver lining. We know it will end, but how will it end and how will we be when it ends is a critical thing.
Okay, I think you made an excellent point about the walking. That's one of my favorite ways to deal with the isolation. And also, we're not hearing a lot of talk about how we can treat or prevent COVID-19. And one of the things that I have really been studying for several years now is a holistic approach to health. And we keep hearing that the elderly are most vulnerable and people with pre-existing conditions. So one of the things that we can do is build our immune system. And one of the things that we are most deficient in is vitamin D, because our body creates that when we're exposed to the sun. And because everybody is shut in, a lot of us are vitamin D deficient. And even before coronavirus, that was the case because of winter. So I put together a slide. I had posted this on social media. I'm going to try to bring it up here. Foods and supplements that can help build your immune system. I think everyone by now knows that vitamin C is good for building your immune system, but also vitamin A, and as I said, vitamin D and zinc. And then there's tons of herbs that can help build your system. Noni juice, elderberry, turmeric, ginger. Do any of you ladies have experience with a more holistic approach to medicine and building your immune system?
Yeah, well, I do intermittent fasting, which I find to be extremely positive for my cell regeneration. And so I think that's a good thing. I absolutely agree with you in terms of what we eat. So in that window of when I do eat, those things that you have listed on your chart and others, because our whole family is into it, I do consume it, and I feel definitely a difference. I also want to pick up on Dr. Jan's point about stress, which I think is absolutely critical. And thank you, Dr. Jan, for bringing that on the agenda, because, if you want to talk about something that can affect your immune system, if you don't handle your stress, that's what stress can do. So it can weaken our immune system. And sometimes we feel like we're in a catch-22 because all of this change that's going on, this unpredictability, this uncertainty, it causes anxiety and stress. So I think for particularly us as entrepreneurs and as people,
Yeah.
that we have to put a greater emphasis on our health, because we are our brand, we are our business, and so health needs to come more centerfold. And it's not only just our health, but the health of our employees and our customers. And so as customers come in, for those of us who have brick and mortar businesses, as customers come into your facility, now you're going to have to think about how you're going to treat them, how you're going to engage them, how they come in. You have to have this health and wellness framework, not only for yourself, but for customers. So I really appreciate that, ZaLonya, you bringing that up. And also I would add to it, rest, because getting that sleep is so incredible. And since we have the time, there's no excuse for nobody not getting the rest. Get your rest, drink your water, have a routine, because this is the time to develop those habits that you hear about. You've always heard of good habits. This is the time to do it.
Yes, and on the stress, I just wanted to piggyback and say stress actually shuts down your immune system. So it's important for us to figure out ways to relax. And
exactly.
I don't know if we mentioned positive attitude, but that's huge. So
well, I do coloring books. I do coloring books and I blow bubbles. Remember as a kid, and watch cartoons. Those are some of my real, treats. We can, binge watch TV and the movies, and that's great. But I love the cartoons because I laugh. And, when we were kids, when we do the bubble things and blow bubbles, I do that. And the coloring books, it's fabulous. And so I have fun.
Awesome. And for those who may not be aware of the vitamins that I mentioned, vitamin B6, magnesium, vitamin D, they all help with fear and depression. Sometimes people are experiencing that fear and depression because their body doesn't have the nutrients it needs to fight it off and to balance your system.
ZaLonya, can I just say something real quick? The thing that we have to be aware of as entrepreneurs is sometimes we wear stress as a badge of honor. And so, I often will hear entrepreneurs talk about, I only get, I'm working so hard, I only get, a couple of hours of sleep a night, or I only do this and I only do that. And sometimes we wear that as a badge of honor. And so I just wanted to touch on that piece, that we're talking about longevity here when we're talking about entrepreneurial efforts and being a true entrepreneur and being able to be in it for the long haul. So I just want to put that out there, that we have to shift our mindset in that way to self-care is the badge of honor, and being healthy is the badge of honor, because that's what helps us to be around for years to come and to be healthy and in our optimal state of mind and body. And I also do practice a lot of those things that you had on the list, Zalanya, FYI. So they're on my list.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Don. So I'm going to pivot to the financial piece because we are running out of time. I think we can go maybe a couple minutes over, maybe 5 minutes, because we did get started late due to those technical issues. And also for our guests, if you have questions for our panel, please feel free to type those in the chat room or the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So my question for you guys is, do you think the government has done enough to help entrepreneurs and small businesses deal with this crisis? We know that we have a CARE Act, and we know that there's a stimulus that went out of $1,200, which is not a whole lot, especially when you're talking about a whole family. But then we had the CARE Act, which was riddled with challenges. From that, there was a PPP program, which stands for the Paycheck Protection Program, to help employers maintain their employees. We also had the EIDL, which a grant where you can get up to $10,000 that you don't have to pay back. However, I understand that only 5% of entrepreneurs received that funding in the first round, and then another 5% in the second round. So has the government done enough? Should we even be relying on the government? What are your thoughts on that? I'll start with, can we start with you, Dr. Geneva, since I know that you work with government?
Yeah, well, I think the short answer is no. But then what do, it almost is, it almost in many cases, in my view, isn't about how much the government has done or have they done enough, but whether or not we as entrepreneurs and small businesses have access to what is our tax dollars. And I think that's the no answer, because no is that, for particularly African-American or female businesses, the whole question of access to capital is not new. That is that we haven't had that access. So now it's, it's a double whammy situation that we're in. And so we know that as soon as that money hit, it was gone. And that's why the second wave came. But however, I do anticipate other waves, and there are a number of efforts that are going on in the community where different banks and corporations like DTE are getting together and trying to do the best they can to change that situation. I also believe that it's a time for small business and entrepreneurs to look at non-traditional financing sources like the Michigan Women Forward organization that is, and philanthropy. Various foundations are putting out these non-traditional dollars that you can get to and access quickly. And so, I don't think, government has done all that it could do, but then I don't have the expectation that they would. I might also add, ZaLonya, that I think, much of this, we're in it ourselves, and the collaboration we can do with partners like you. The National Business League has been, incredible in its work. But I also think that what we do makes a difference in terms of, our businesses and connecting. And that's why I think that listening and talking to customers, that customer engagement, so that we reach out and tell customers we want to continue to do business with them, please continue to support us.
Okay, awesome. I want to piggyback on what you said about other resources that are available for entrepreneurs. I have a graphic up now. Towards the bottom, you can see a lot of your private businesses are offering philanthropy like Verizon Small Business Recovery Fund. There's the Facebook for Business, Google,
Right.
Amazon
Right.
offering money. And then a lot of states like Michigan and Chicago, they have their own relief programs. So I
Mhm.
encourage everyone to investigate what is being offered on the local level, as well
Right.
as private businesses and corporations and foundations, because there's a lot out there beyond what the government is offering.
Mhm.
ZaLonya,
Yeah, and go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Geneva. Did you want
No,
to?
I was just echoing that again. If you're a female entrepreneur, run a small business, please connect with the Michigan Women Forward. They just announced a really terrific program that's out there. Also, check out philanthropy. You know, Kresge, Knight, Hudson Weber, all of those foundations are really stepping up and trying to make a difference. The National Business League is another one. ZaLonya and the resources that she has in Connect. So I think this is the time that we can step out and look at some of those non-traditional sources. Yes, go for the government because it's our tax dollars, but I also encourage folk to look at some of in other places.
Absolutely. Dr. Jan?
yeah, so ZaLonya, to answer your question, I think this is what, as I'm hearing you and Dr. Geneva talking, what I'm hearing is a no-no. To answer to your question is a no-no. One of the no's is KNOW. What do we know? And I don't think that entrepreneurs, particularly smaller, really, mom and pop stores, don't really know enough about the resources that are available. And also, Dr. Geneva talked about only 5% of entrepreneurs were funded. That speaks to two things. One, did we apply? Did entrepreneurs apply? That's the first one. And second, if we didn't apply, then the first answer is absolutely no, because we didn't apply to even get the money. But if we did apply to get the money, then it speaks to something else that is probably something we need to KNOW know, is how to establish those financial relationships. Because what I'm hearing is that those who did not get it, who did apply, it was based on their relationships with financial institutions, which means as an entrepreneur, we need to rethink how we do business with financial institutions. And many times they want a 3-year relationship and they want to see money flowing through and little small loans being taken out and paid. So when something like this comes along, there's not a no answer where you need the resources, but you're not able to get it because you don't have that financial resource in place. So, and the other third thing is what we're learning from this is we really cannot depend on the government. And so I love the conversation and I love the fact that you're showing some additional resources. And I think this could be a whole webinar. I think you and I talked about that. This should be a webinar where you actually just do a whole financial conversation.
Right.
Resources available and walk people through the steps, because quite often it's the NOW of knowing what and how to do it.
Absolutely. And a lot of people did apply that did not receive funding. And then there were challenges applying because the website crashed because so many people applied. And then the first round, they ran out of funding, I think, in the first week. Yeah, and so the other thing I want to touch on is we're living in an unprecedented time. So people are really flexible right now. So if you're having financial challenges, one of the things that you can do is contact everybody that you owe money to, because people are willing to work with you, make payment arrangements, defer payments for 2 and 3 months, and that will free up funds to do some things that you just have to do right now. So those, I think, are the 2 big points: to look at what other resources are out there for funding, and then follow up with the people that you owe money and work out some sort of a payment arrangement. Anything else?
ZaLonya, I just wanted to add, please don't forget to engage with your customers or clients. You know, this is the time you want to tell your customers and clients, I want your business. I'm coming back. I want you to be with, I am an essential service or business. You want to position yourself and let them know that you and what you provide is essential and you want them back.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to do that as a PS. So it's the perfect time to be listening and engaging our customers and clients.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Dawn.
I just was going to say to piggyback off of what some of you all said is there's the financial piece, and I think the bounce back or the idea of what do we do in this financial situation is we also have to develop grit more than ever before. And so what do you do if you've applied for money, or you didn't think to apply to money, you didn't know where to apply for money, or you did and you didn't get it? You know, it also calls for us being really creative in thinking about alternate ways to generate finances, or to be able to work that. Okay, and so that's where I think for entrepreneurs that grit really comes into play. So, and it doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's straightforward. But I think we can get ourselves into a bind if we are depending on one source or looking to the government as our only way to get us out to a point that was just made. So I very much resonate with that we should be getting those kinds of helps and support. But what if we don't? As entrepreneurs, I think we are uniquely positioned to be able to be very creative and innovative, unlike other business owners that have big corporations, for example. We can do that pivot when it comes to financial options as well. And so just encouraging us to really stretch and think about other ways to do it, not just lay down and die.
Absolutely. And I just heard today that calls on the government suicide hotline have increased 1,000%. So I want to say to entrepreneurs, if you're having a hard time, if you lose your business, it's not the end of the world. There's so many lessons to be learned from this, so many opportunities that have opened up. You can start another business. You know, so look at the opportunities. And I think you and I were talking about this, Dr. Jan, all of the opportunities that entrepreneurs can take advantage of. Like a lot of people are starting face mask businesses. My brother has a friend who is making face masks and she can't keep up with the demand. So there's going to be opportunities for coaching and consulting because so many people have lost their jobs. So they'll be looking to get into entrepreneurship and they'll need that guidance and direction.
So, you know, ZaLonya, that's a really good point. You know, and one of your questions that you wanted us to talk about was, what are the lessons that we've learned coming out of this? And I came up with 3 things that I thought about. And the first one was diversifying. I think that's what Dawn was talking about just now. We can't, you know, perhaps your business was consulting or perhaps it was a product, but how can you diversify your products, your services, how you deliver them? We are a perfect example of that now. When there used to be face-to-face conferences and now we have to do conferences virtually. I've got 3 conferences that had to switch and pivot to be virtual conferences. It's an opportunity with diversification of your product and your services for you to be sustainable. So if you're hit in one way, perhaps there's still an income flow coming the other way. I've already touched on being money smart. That's a critical thing. That is the impact is the financial impact on people, but also the financial impact of not being able to utilize the resources or not knowing the resources as we just talked about. But most important, and I love Les Brown because he always said if you can look up, you can get up. But you can't get up if you stop looking up. So I think you have to think ahead. Life does change. I am a strong believer that everything in life is temporary. Nothing will remain the same. But if we take that perspective, that's how we get ourselves in a position to bounce back from emergencies and other interferences with life. It's not, my company is called Conceivers, not because of the name, it's because it's a concept, it's a thought process that if I'm creative enough and I can conceptualize something and I can be innovative, then I can make these things realities for me. And I also know that faith works, but faith needs work. So we can't pray it away all the time, although faith does help push us through the stress and it helps get us through the difficult times in life. But while we're praying, we have to put some action into that prayer also. But it's just do the research, find someone. You just talked about people launching business. My family launched a business. We didn't launch, I did challenge them to do the face mask. They said, you want to get the sewing machine, do all the work. But shut down, we launched a family business. And our family businesses supplies and services and products. And now we are bulk buying our products, toilet paper, paper towel, food. We're bulk buying products that we sell. So
wonderful. Thank you, Jan. So we're going to wrap up. We did have a question here. One of our participants wanted to know if this will be replayed because they had trouble logging on. Yes, this is being recorded and we will put the link up so that people who could not attend or had some technical problems will be able to hear it. Okay.
ZaLonya,
Dr. Geneva.
are we closing? No, I just wanted to add
closing remarks, but go ahead.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay, I just wanted to just to share that one of the things, the biggest lesson that I've learned is the reaffirmation about how important being a purpose-driven entrepreneur is. You know, what our values are, what our mission, what our purpose is, and what we do in our businesses is so, I think, very important. It reminds me of, you know, one of my favorite movies, Barbershop. And you know that scene where Cedric the entertainer and Ice Cube are talking, and Cedric is trying to show Ice Cube how his father, who started the barbershop, that he wasn't just cutting hair, that he saw the value in helping men look good when they went to get a job so that they could feed their family. And he saw value in being a place where people could come in and congregate and talk and support each other. And the other barbershop that showed that people in the community went to Ice Cube's barbershop instead of the fancy new one because he stood up and fought for the community. And I think those things remind us about how important it is to understand why we're in business and what the values are that we bring in our business. Because you know what? There's thousands of barbershops, thousands of consultants, hundreds, thousands of coaches. So what makes us different? And what makes us different is the values that we bring, our unique purpose in what we do. So I just think this time of COVID for me got me to reflect, and I really do think it's a strategic edge in our businesses.
Yep.
So that's my closing remarks.
Okay, wonderful.
We can't be afraid to innovate. We can't. This is a perfect time for entrepreneurs to innovate and to take a look at your business, even if it's going well. But certainly if you feel like you're struggling, this is a perfect time to innovate, to rework things, to expand your offerings, to look at your business model. It's a perfect time. So take advantage of it. That's my takeaway.
Okay, one of our guests just commented, bouncing back will also mean revisiting financial literacy, budgeting, spending habits, and having a personal and business emergency plan. Thank you for that, Michael.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Dr. Jan, can we get your closing remarks?
So, you know, just like was it Michael that put that note? That's exactly what I'm thinking, is that it's time to revise strategies. Try to revise strategies for how you stabilize your business, how you stabilize your family, yourself, by reviewing what you're doing, what is your offering. I think Dr. Geneva is right. What is that mission? But beyond the mission, how do you go about that mission? And, what do you stand for? And what will you not stand for? Mm-hmm. Really, in a time when, there could be some partnerships. You might be a struggling entrepreneur, but maybe there's a complementary business that you might join up with to stay sustainable. Is just looking beyond ourselves to see, are there opportunities to work with someone else to make something happen so that you both can be sustained. So I just wanted to offer that, is we really have to be open-minded and really look at it from a very, very broad and a very narrow sense, because this is a unique position being your own business owner, is that you're not necessarily having to take someone else's direction. You are the director, you are the writer, you are the one that needs to make that course and go where you want to go.
Absolutely, wonderful. Well, this has really been something for the National Entrepreneurs Association as well. This is our first virtual meeting.
You did good.
Thank you. And we will be doing...
There'll be many more, I'm sure.
There will be, as we adjust to what people are calling the new normal. However, I think things will get back to the way that they used to be. However, we probably will see some social distancing for a while. So we will be doing more virtual meetings. And I just want to encourage everyone to get a strong support system around you. When you're stressed out, when you're in need of anything, you need people to call on that can help you, support you, and give you a positive word. So in closing, I just want to say our goal with this event was simple. It was to focus on the positive aspects of the situation that we're dealing with. And we believe that by having a positive attitude, a strong support system, utilizing the available resources, and staying healthy, you can bounce back from COVID-19. So I'm Dr. ZaLonya Allen. Thank you, my guests. Thank you, attendees. And take care of yourselves and be safe.
Be safe.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.